we have received and being able to meet together, and we pray that thy spirit will be with us in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
So this last weekend, on Friday night, we were traveling home with a load of our stuff back to where we're going to be moving.
No.
And we felt, both of us felt a prompting to go a certain way. We knew that we were trying to race a snowstorm. So we both felt a prompting to go a certain way.
82411.
Yes.
What's the P.O. box?
Sorry. And so as we got going, the storm looked like it had cleared up over Yellowstone. So we decided, you know what, let's go through Yellowstone. That takes about an hour and a half off of our drive if we can cut through the park. And so we started driving up there. We got through the south gate. Everything was good. And about 5 minutes up the road, we hit it. Snow started flying. We kept going, and as we climbed up over one of the passes there, pretty soon we had about 5 inches of snow under our tires. Things were starting to look a little bit hairy. And as soon as we got up around West Thumb, which is the west thumb of Yellowstone Lake, we got cell phone service again, and we found out the pass we had to go over had just closed. So we couldn't go that way, and interestingly enough, we had been prompted not to go that way. So we turned around and we started headed back out. And as we head back out, we're driving in about 9 inches of snow. Things have gotten pretty bad. We almost get in an accident with a tourist that can't drive in snow and didn't have a car for it. We get out, and it took us, we didn't get home Friday night. We should have been home about 8:30 at night. We ended up getting to where we're moving at about 12:30 in the afternoon Saturday morning because of the difficulty of the trip and the snow and the horrible road conditions. And what we both learned from that was another prompting of follow the first prompting. Before we ever had started driving, we had both felt strongly, don't do that. Go this way. And we both had ignored it. And had we followed the first prompting, we would have beat the storm over that mountain pass instead of driving through 3 different bands of blizzards. And we would have been home about 10 o'clock at night. And so we tried to take the fast way out, even against the prompting of the Lord, and what it resulted was in a disastrous trip. Instead of 4.5 hours, we were on the road for 13 hours. So, with 2 infants, a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old.
Oh, and that was my question. Where were the children? You didn't take them with you?
Yeah, they were in the back seat. It wasn't fun. Anyway, so follow the first prompting in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, here we go. We're going to, let's see, where are we going to go in here? Okay. So we're going to put ourselves in the shoes of Brentwood Associates. We must decide whether we'll exit the kitchen now, and if so, what is the option? So as a group, vote. So what do you guys think? Emma, what do you think? Now or, and if now, which one?
Now, I would say, this is a tricky one. I would say now, and I would try to sell to a strategic buyer or a financial buyer.
All right. How about you, Danny?
I'm going to say I would go with the organic growth because I don't see. Can I tell you my reason why I wouldn't go for the IPO?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I see there's the main concern is like the developments with the company's philosophy, fresh from the garden. Which is why I decided to grow organically because the development of a company after it exits depends greatly on 3 to 4 buyers. So I mean, what was I trying to say? Because I mean, basically, net consumer versus net producer stewardship. They said it was difficult to find somebody to actually, to go along with their philosophy. So I figured, that's why I wouldn't go with them because, that's why I just wouldn't go with the IPO. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No worries.
All right. Well, I actually just thought that I would wait and grow the business, mostly because I actually, for my calculations, I did the numbers and I did the comparison of what the IPO. I mean, there wasn't a lot of information in here to tell us, how much they thought they could raise with the IPO. But I went back in and I took, let me just show you what I did here. Here are the numbers I did. So I actually went in and took a look at noodles because they had noodles in the exhibits.
Right.
IPO opened up at 96 million. So these are in millions. Now the case study said that they would do approximately 10 to 13 million for the cost of the sale, but Noodles was able to do it for about 3 million. With, of course, the case study's reoccurring costs of 2 million to manage a public company, which means they'd have a total income after of approximately 91 million. But when we looked, and then I took the numbers that they had here for the strategic and the financial, and I actually averaged those together. Burger King out of, some of the outliers that weren't specific. And these were the numbers that I came up with. So the cost of the sale, which I determined to be 1.5% plus 1 million on both of them. And this is approximately what it would be. If we waited and did not do the sale, I estimated this to be at about 5 years worth of income, meaning maybe that's what we could get if we actually did the sale. So in looking at these numbers, I felt like the IPO, if these numbers are correct, didn't provide near the amount of potential income and had a lot more grief, a lot more potential to destroy the reputation. I mean, now with the Jobs Act that came out where they could do it confidentially, but there's still the potential of reputation damage. So this is kind of the numbers that I looked at. So I determined that waiting and gaining scale was definitely the way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. With the IPO, I really didn't like the IPO because they're comparing it to Noodle, but Noodle had way more revenue. They were a far larger business when they went public.
Twice the size.
Yeah, size was massively different. If Zoe's wants to go do an IPO, then they need to wait and grow. The reason I said to sell to a strategic buyer was based on the idea that Brentwood itself says that they don't really keep businesses for much longer than they've already kept this one.
Yeah, so they're at 5 years. They go 6.5 years.
Yeah, so 5 to 6.5 years. And so I was saying start looking to get out to a strategic buyer because I feel like they need to wait and grow the business for at least 3 or 4 or 5 years before they could do an IPO and be successful at it.
Well, and I can't help but wonder if maybe the reason why they're looking at this IPO, doing the sailing now is because the company seems to have grown as far as it can based on what they have to offer.
Yeah.
So
is that why the strategic buyout would be better? Because they'd have more resources to actually grow the company or for themselves, right?
That specializes in restaurants, then they can get through it and actually take it to the next level. So it could be a good sale for a strategic buyer simply because they have the skill sets and the company is right on the brink.
So is that what they're saying, that Zoe's Kitchen is going to be bigger than Chipotle? Because I haven't ever heard of them.
Well, Zoe's is big in the South.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a lot
of company. I've never heard of it. So I don't know about that.
Actually, I've not heard of it either, but based on the map that they have on somewhere here, on exhibit number 6, when they acquired it, they had, a few, but then by 13, just 6 years later, they had significantly increased the number that they had.
Nothing at the interview.
I thought it was.
Okay. So as a grow, so we've done our opinion. If you agree at the outset, take a counter position. All right. So why they want to exit now? So we just talked about that. What are some reasons for holding on now? So to grow the business, get a higher scale, more value in it.
And I believe it's
window that Brentwood operates.
I don't think it's an actual
Let me look it up.
Company.
Okay, what can go right under each scenario? What can go right, sorry, and what could go wrong?
Is
Okay,
this 2
well,
or 3? Which one is this?
we're on number 4C. Okay, so for the IPO,
Okay.
go ahead. No,
I'm just
for the
looking for the
IPO,
question.
what could go right and what could go wrong?
I'm looking for my answers on my document.
Yeah. Well, for an IPO, I think that what could go right is they could sell it. They could sell it. I don't feel like they're going to get as good a money as they could if they did a private seller, because how, first of all, I just don't feel like Zoe's Kitchen is positioned well enough for an IPO right now. But it would definitely improve their Brentwood's reputation, because they hadn't done an IPO in several years. And what could go wrong with this is that, under the IPO anyway, is that they could do a poor showing, which could damage Zoe's future possibilities and damage the stock and the brand if it didn't do a good IPO launch, which then damages, of course, Brentwood's reputation.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the IPO there's a lot of risk, and I don't see the upside of it. How do you phrase it? I don't see the upside being worth it, worth the risk. There's too much risk and not enough value that you're gaining from the risk, even at the best of times.
Yeah.
I said that, like, there could be too many shares of stock that could be issued, and like I think that might affect the price of the share or something. Because I was reading the document and they said that they could buy back like 15% if they issued too much.
Well, that would be done by the underwriters. It would, so
yeah, that's,
of course is the company, but I think that they didn't really get into that and how much they were looking to raise. So it's kind of hard to.
So can an IPO actually be considered a failure? Have you heard of like that? Or?
Oh, absolutely, it can be considered a failure. And if it's not done right, if right before the IPO something comes out, like she had a E. coli breakout. Now you've just dropped, according to the case study, $13 million to make this happen, and you can't sell the stock. You can't give away the stock.
And you're toast.
Yeah, it could definitely. And you hear about it once in a while. I mean, nowadays with the SEC is involved and the amount of steps that's involved with an IPO offering, the only thing that could really damage you if you get to the sale point. I mean, at this point, remember that the underwriters have already got buyers lined up. So when it launches, the immediate sale occurs. If you can't get those kinds of numbers together, you probably just wouldn't make the offering. Of course, you've lost the money now. But there's a lot of steps involved to make sure that everything goes as possibly well as it can. You just hope your media coverage is worthwhile.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. All right, strategic buyer. So let's just say sale. So what could go right under a sale and what could go wrong?
Could go right is you could get a lot of value, a massive return on it, and then you get to make an easy exit, and you're done.
Clean.
It's clean. You're out. You made your return, and game over. But what could go wrong is you don't make the return that you wanted or that it's worth.
Yes, it is.
And then you start, and then as a result, Zoe's just tanks. And if Zoe's tanks, even if Brentwood is removed from it, some of the blame will go back on them for that.
Which hurts their reputation. And of course, they can say that it was a management of the new company, but I think that's part of the thing of, they're paying, what, $1 million for negotiations?
So we already went over why they wanted to exit, right? Or are we doing that right now? Like what can go right under each scenario? So we've done the IPO and then the financial and strategic, and then which one are we working on right now?
we're on this one. Can you see my screen? We're on 4.
Yeah, because I mean, isn't the strategic a little more? They give you a little more valuation than on the financial, just because they do have those more resources, and But didn't they tell? Wasn't he told that he was going to be able to get a higher valuation from from private equity firms or something like that?
In the
Towards
numbers
the end of
that
the case?
I identified in the, when I did the averages, the financial sponsor did provide more by, like 119 million.
Though, didn't they already have like a credit line from GE for like $1 million plus?
They did, which was what they're talking about tapping into if they do the weight.
Wherein would that have affected them? Where would that played with them? Like, would that have played in if they like stayed to grow the company organically, or would that have helped them, find financial strategic buyers? Because that's where I'm a little bit iffy on that.
In fact, having that kind of debt on the books would hurt them regardless of where they're going, any type of sale. But they can pay that down if they use it to actually make money. They can pay it down before they prepare for sale. But they're in a good position right now.
Yeah.
We talked about why Brentwood would want to exit right now. When we talked about that, if you said minutes ago, it was because the company was in a good position. Brentwood was ready to get out. And I think that overall, it was because the company kind of got to where it was before it actually needed to have more than what they were willing, what they had to give right now. So they kind of stagnated in their growth, and they were looking to get an infuse of cash so that they could grow the business more.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so wait and grow the business. What could go right and what could go wrong?
Well, if they grow it and it works right, then it could potentially it has the potential to be the most profitable avenue. What could go wrong is similar to the other ones. You have an E. coli outbreak, something like that. That's very wrong. That's really going to hurt them. The other thing is if it just stagnates. If sales, as you head into the Great Recession here, if sales just, or we're after the Great Recession. So if your sales just stagnate and market shifts and then you're stuck with it and then you start losing value for a potential sale to another person, that would be your danger.
Yeah, you can have a damage to the brand.
Yep.
Yeah. Negative publicity. Yeah. But, based on where they're going, I'm looking at Exhibit 7, based on how things are rolling along here.
I don't see
promotion, right?
From 2011 to 2013, they doubled in growth, in revenues, excuse me.
But didn't they have negative like net income for like 3 years? What does that say about the company? Even though they had like growth, like the same as the other companies.
Mm-hmm.
So did they have too much debt financed? Like, what was that, the debt ratio on that then?
See, they didn't provide us that information, so it's really hard to know.
I don't think so.
It's hard to know on that, but you're right. There is a negative, even though the total revenues were coming in, but they were doing a lot of growth.
Yeah, when you're growing as fast as they are,
the numbers look funny, but like the case actually.
Hey, what's one?
So I think they had 16. They had, but they ended up at 90, and they had plans for a significant more coming up in the future years. So that's probably what a lot of that is. Okay. So this gets dicey. So how much is Zoe's worth under each exit option? That's how I came up with those numbers. Discuss with each other how you got your answers. As a group, come up with a consensus as to what Zoe's is worth.
I'm so bad at numbers, I didn't even know how to run them.
Well, and I'm not sure that we have enough, which is kind of why. Okay, so what are the difference you observe in valuation buys on who buys the company? Does it make sense? And why would anyone sell to a financial buyer instead of an IPO? So if we go back and we looked at these numbers, I think that we would want to go with a financial because yeah, the costs are less. There's the potential to make a staggering more money. And I think that with a financial sponsor, you have more hands-on from them, and they'll keep to the true course of what makes Zoe special. And so, because let's face it, we do not see a lot of Mediterranean dining out there.
No, especially not in this sector. I mean, you do have some Mediterranean ones, but you're not talking fast casual. You're talking sit down and order your dang food.
Well, and we're in the South. You know, the South is really known for meat and potatoes and sugary. I mean, it's an entirely different idea for the South.
Yeah, it's certainly different.
Yeah.
I would expect this more on the coast, frankly. I'd expect this in the Northeast and in California, Washington, Oregon. This isn't.
So what is Mediterranean? Is that like food? Like, right?
So
seafood? Something? Like they had tuna and other stuff, so.
It's a fish-based diet, but it's mostly a raw food diet where you eat fruits and vegetables primarily, healthy oils, very little dairy, very little meat, very lean meats, but you focus a lot on fish. And
Yeah,
you're away from food.
Right.
Your red meat that you're doing, you're looking at a lot of lamb, stuff like that. It's based off of the Mediterranean states. You're basing this off of Greek, Italian. That's your food bit groups that follow those the popular foods from those regions.
I think it's probably one of the closest diets to Word of Wisdom out there.
Yeah.
The popular diets.
Yeah.
Again, what is the difference user evaluation based on who buys the company?
You know, that was where I was struggling to put my numbers together. I got as much of it as I could, and I haven't gotten to run any of my valuations yet.
Well, I'd be curious to know, Ammon, when you get your numbers put together, if how mine compared, because as you can see down here, I had a lot of explanations.
Sure.
This is based on this number was based on the IPO.
I'm in my class right now.
Here was based on
studying. She haven't called her or heard from her or anything. But I'll call her when I'm done with this.
Anyway, so those numbers are. I'd be curious to know how they come up.
Dude, I don't have money.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have that much money.
When I get
the IPO, when I was reading along, the IPO sounded like really the way.
I don't have a job or
it gets some
for a year, so
publicity.
they won't let me sign the bond.
But when I actually wrote the numbers,
my car's only worth $1,100. It's not worth the $2,500.
I thought it would go. Hey, Danny.
Mom can't.
Danny, mute your.
Because you have that. Dude, I have to go. I have class, dude. All right.
Yeah, so as soon as when I crunch my numbers and put them together, I'll send it over to you so you know what. So we can kind of compare where our numbers are coming from on that.
Yeah. All right. So any other comments anyone wants to say? We'll wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Okay. Here we go. Here is our summary. Wait, what did we decide? Did we decide as a group? So Danny and I thought we should wait and grow it, and you're thinking that we should move forward with a strategic buyer?
That would be my recommendation, but I'm open to holding on to it and growing it. I am not open in any way to the IPO. I think it's a horrible idea.
All right, here's the summary. All right, so as a group, we decided that the IPO was a no, not right now. We can look at it with the Jobs Act later if we want to take a look at it later, but right now it's a no. One of us thought about selling to a strategic buyer because at this point it looks like Zoe's has perhaps gone as far as it can under the current leadership. It needs an infuse of cash to expand. And the two of us thought about waiting and growing the business. At this point, Brentwood still had another year and a half before they reached their, the outside of their 6.5 years, and to see what kind of scale they could get before making the sale. I think we all agreed that when the time comes down to selling, the strategic buyer or a financial buyer would definitely be the way to do it. The numbers that we looked at identified that the financial buyer might have a higher price point for us that benefits Brentwood. As a group, we decided that Brentwood would want to exit now because Zoe's has kind of grown as far as it can under their leadership and is ready for another organization to come in and take it even further. Brentwood is still on the outside of the 6.5 years that it typically does. Some of the reasons that they could hold on to it now is so that we could scale it, make it more valuable, because currently looking at the comparisons within the case study, comparison to Noodle, they're about half the size financially of Noodle, meaning they may not have a good IPO showing. So it would be good to hold on now to see if we can expand that. What could go right or wrong under an IPO? They could make the sale, and then Brentwood would get lots of improvement to reputation. What could go wrong is that the company couldn't be big enough. The IPO may not draw enough, and it could actually damage the brand. Under a strategic buyer or financial buyer, advantages would be that it's a sale that's done now, and Brentwood has a clean exit. What could go wrong with that is that they may not get as much money as that they had hoped for. As far as the weight and grow, the advantages of doing that is getting a better scale, having to be worth more money. The downside is that because they're kind of at their growth limit based on what management they've got in there now, it could actually stagnate and even damage the brand. Okay, and then based on the observations, the monies that we came up with numbers based on what Noodle's IPO went for, and that was at 96 million. Considering the fact that Zoe's Kitchen is half the size, we never even get into that number. And so looking at the numbers based on the averages, what was included in the case study on the sellers, we're looking at about 500 million, anywhere from 300 to 500 million, depending on a strategic or a financial, would be the possibility on that. But if we kept the company and grew it more, we could actually see about reaching some of those financial selling numbers by being bigger, and improve the IPO if the Axe Jobs decided to go for it. Okay, anything I missed, guys?
No, I think that wraps everything up with a bow.
All right, well, that's it. Send us out the video.
Will do. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.